Just getting ready to start out on today's hike out to Mount Baldy in the Pine Valley Mountain Wilderness. The trailhead starts out in this tiny little town called New Harmony on the edge of town here, which is a very interesting town. It's down in the valley down here on the east side of the Pine Valley Mountains. This trail goes through private property on the way to get to the mountains. These are always a little more difficult to do with one hand. Well, this dried up creek bed I'm walking next to looks very large. I walked in it a little bit and there were enormous boulders down there. This must get a significant amount of water during the snow melt, but then completely dries up and leaves this huge canyon down there. Come up a decent way down from New Harmony. You can see the highway going through the valley down there and Canaraville on the far side of the valley. Just about up to where the more significant climbing is going to start. Getting up on top. The canyon up here, there was an interesting sign by the trailhead. I think it's this canyon. Is called Comanche Canyon, but the sign said, the locals said that the maps are wrong and the Forest Service changed the spelling when they took over, and it's supposed to be Comanche Canyon, and it was named for an Indian couple who lived up in the canyon in the 1800s. It was a man and a woman from different tribes had run away together to live by themselves, and the man would hunt up in the canyon and the woman would come down into the village and people would give them food. I think she was a Comanche and he was, I can't remember what tribe he was from, but of course in the story it was the chief's son and an Indian princess. But the end of the story is that the people in the town think that they eventually ran away to Mexico together because their tribe, one of the tribes, was chasing them down, and they came through shortly after they vanished looking for them. So that is possibly the canyon I'm going up. On the map it doesn't label this, so I don't know if it's this canyon, but it talked about the trail going up through it, so I suspect it is this canyon. Huh, haven't seen these up here yet. This side of the mountains is definitely much more deserty. And here we have the boundary of the Pine Valley Mountain Wilderness. This is going to be a hot climb. The sun is already quite warm. I've come up quite a ways, a little past 2,000 feet of elevation gain so far. Started back in the small town section of New Harmony back there. Whew. This trail is moderately overgrown. There's oak scrub hanging over the trail everywhere. You kind of just have to push through. But you can always tell where the trail is supposed to be. Well, I've made it up as far as I'm going to go along the trail. At this point, I'm going to leave the trail and start bushwhacking up. The trail route I had seen a GPS route for before goes down further, but one person said you should not go down that far and you should turn off at this rock and start bushwhacking there. Otherwise, you have to go up and then drop down and then go up again. So I'm going to take their advice and start heading up. This has been quite steep. I suspect that I wasn't supposed to turn immediately at that rock and was supposed to go up through there onto the ridge and then up. That would have been a little longer, but a little less steep. But since I'm already over here, this is doable, so I'm just going to continue up this way. But I think on the way down, I'll probably go down that way and arc around. This section was definitely steeper than I would like. Definitely should have gone a little further to link up with the more gradual ridge. But it's fine. I've done much worse than this. At no point is it to the point where I'm sliding backwards or anything. It's just no reason to do anything this steep if there was a less steep option. Whew. Okay, well, this pile of rocks is going to be a nice place to rest for a minute. There's even some shade. Very nice. And there's a seat up on top. Perfect. Whew. Just gonna toss my poles down below. This is an excellent place to stop and have a break. This next false summit is steep, but not as steep as the last one. Oh, apparently there's a bunch of them up here. Oh. Well, I hope I'm not stepping on any nests. Interesting patterns in the burned wood. There's the nice shaded rock pile I stopped to rest on at the top of what seemed at the time to be a very tall ridge I had climbed up on. Now I'm up on top of this next one, and I'll get to see here how far it is to the next false summit. Well, the next one's not nearly as tall, at least. It's not the top, there's another one. Okay, which of these is taller? I think that one on the right. That one on the left might have better views. I'll probably check out both of them. That one was not the top either, but it was the final ridge. Just curves around over this way. Final summit here. There's some eagles down below. Or hawks. Can't tell from here. And there is Hurricane in Sand Hollow. Out across to Zion, over to the east in the Kolob Canyons. Canaraville up over there. And where I started down in New Harmony is hidden by that ledge over there. Before I leave, I'm going to go climb out to that point because it'll have the best view down on New Harmony. This breeze feels fantastic. It had gotten quite warm up here. This was a pretty strenuous climb. And I don't see any summit register or cairn or anything up here, which is kind of surprising. But this is definitely the tallest point right here. There's the Pine Valley Wilderness area back over that way. Signal and Burger back over there. The spot I'm at now, Mount Baldy, 8,891 feet. So definitely a little lower than the ones over there, but it also started much lower. Just about the same amount of elevation gain. And this is one of the better summits I've been to on this trip. You can see all around. Not too hazy today, a little bit, but can still see plenty far. This is a spectacular spot. I'm just going to sit up here for a while and enjoy these views and eat some peanut butter filled pretzels. There's a rattlesnake down in this hole rattling at me. had a dead bird in its mouth. I wish I had gotten a video of it. It was up on the rock with a dead bird in its mouth, and it ran away in this hole. That is pretty cool. Well, I came across from the summit over to this rocky knob over here. There was very surprisingly a rattlesnake up on the summit that was eating a bird on the way out. Unfortunately, it saw me and started rattling and immediately jumped down a crack in a rock, so I couldn't get a picture or video of it other than its tail visible rattling at me. But over from this side, there's a really nice view onto New Harmony down below. And New Harmony was a very interesting town. I read a little bit about it. I was camped up beyond it in the mountains, and the trailhead, it's the Harmony Mountains back here, and the trailhead is the New Harmony trailhead that I left from to come up on Mount Baldy up here. So I was reading a little bit about the town, and it led me down to some weird articles and some old bits written about it, and it was very interesting. The town, apparently, it was originally, they built the town of Old Harmony down in the valley down here in the 1850s, some Mormon settlers, and they were led by John B. Lee, who a bunch of roads and things are still named after out here. He was like the community leader out here, and I think he was one of the church leaders. So they built Old Harmony, which I assume was not called Old Harmony at the time. It was probably just called Harmony, which was named after Harmony, Pennsylvania, which was where Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon before the Mormons all came out here. So they named their town, presumably Harmony. It got called Old Harmony. They abandoned it a few years after they built it in the 1850s because of the Walker Indian Wars going on. They were having lots of Indian attacks. So they abandoned Harmony, renamed it Old Harmony when they talked about it, and decided that what they needed was a fort. So down in the valley nearby, they built Fort Harmony instead. In 1853, there's an old historical marker when you're on the way into town. There's like some of the original foundations are still down there for Fort Harmony. But Fort Harmony, they built 1853, again led by John B. Lee. In 1857, this is the east side valley for the Pine Valley Mountains. On the valley on the west side of the Pine Valley Mountains, in 1857, people from this community, along with others, perpetrated the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which was a bunch of Mormon settlers from the area, including John B. Lee and other leaders, dressed up like Indians, joined with some Peyote Indians, and went and massacred a big wagon train that was going out to California and killed like 120 or 130 people down there. It was one of the biggest massacres in American history, and that was 1857. So at that time they were living in Fort Harmony down here in the valley. Fort Harmony was abandoned in 1862 when they had a massive flood called the Great Flood of 1862, which destroyed all the walls of their fort. So all the settlers dispersed and founded the towns of New Harmony and Canaraville over on the other side of the valley over there. And down in New Harmony, there's still only got a few hundred people living in the town down there, and I think a lot of them are ancestors of the original settlers. So John B. Lee and the others lived down in New Harmony, and eventually word got out about the massacre, and the federal government eventually put enough pressure on the state of Utah that John B. Lee was put on trial as the leader, and he was condemned and executed by firing squad out on the west side of the Pine Valley Mountains at the site of the massacre. There's some historical markers out on the other side of it there. So I thought that was very interesting how much history there is for this tiny little town that has a couple hundred people down here, down at the base of the mountain. very interesting to read about. Well, for the descent, I cut around the side instead of going up and over where I'd come up before in the really steep spot. It came down a slightly less steep side down to this gully looking thing going down that'll take me down to a little bit gentler slope. It's still moderately steep, but less steep than just going straight down the side over there like where I went up. I don't think it was a huge difference though. Either one would have worked fine. Whew, made it back to the trailhead. That was a long and tiring trail, but excellent summit at the top. I think this is the third day in a row without seeing a single person on the trail. Ended up being 10.89 miles, 3,533 feet of elevation gain in 7 hours to the minute. And I am very much looking forward to a cold soda.